Welcome back to St. Lucia to another episode of Newsmaker Live at Large. It's Wednesday. It's Newsmaker Live where we make your stories our stories. Earlier in my preamble, you would have noticed how passionate and how involved and how touched I was about young Milan Jean-Baptiste, who lost his life senselessly, some would say. I mean, some things, some deaths are just beyond words. Tonight, I have with me two guests. They are executive members of a charity called Caring Hands Foundation. Caring Hands Foundation is a charity geared towards vulnerable young people, children, and with me is the chairperson, Miss Melissa Serval. She is an activist, avid advocate, advocating against abuse of children, vulnerable, at-risk children. Melissa has had a wealth of knowledge and experience working with at-risk and vulnerable kids. She, at one point, was the president of the Junior CAFRA League, and she also works right now with CARIFEM, and she will tell you a little bit more about those experiences. And also with me is Mr. Kendall Elva, who is a 10-year veteran educator. He's also a probation officer. He is an activist and a community leader. He is the PRO, Public Relations Officer of Caring Hands Foundation, CHF. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So, Mel, you are, I'm going to start with you. You are the veteran here. I've known Melissa for, years, over 10 years
yes.
now, about 10 years. And I first met Melissa while we were involved in CAFRA. Well, Melissa is younger than myself, and she was the president of the Junior CAFRA League, and this young lady wowed me and amazed me, and we've remained friends over the years. So tell us, Melissa, how did you get involved in activism and community work?
Okay, well, good evening, St. Lucia, Laura. I got involved in advocating, and it all started with the Valinda Joseph's case. After the system had failed her, and it has always been a part of me to be involved in charity work. As a child, I grew up in a home that it started with my parents lending a hand to those in need, those in abuse cases, especially my mom, and it's something that I lived in, and it has always been a passion and dear at heart, and it is something that I have done over the years, over 10 years of my life, reaching out to people, being there for them. And it's amazing how throughout these years, the number of persons that I've encountered on a daily basis, sometimes over the phone. I have always, after the Valinda Joseph's case, my phone has always been going, and there's always an issue, there's always something affecting someone, and I have tried my best never to let anybody down, but to be there for them and to try to make a difference myself.
And I think you're one of those classic cases. Your mom is an educator herself, retired now, and I mean she was responsible. She was the principal of the
vice
principal of the PI secondary school, and just being responsible for children, I guess that would translate into the home. And let me tell you, I have never seen two people more in sync as Melissa and her mom. They're just like two peas in a pod, and it's almost as if Mrs. Serval has taken her training and in the capacity as a teacher and as an educator and brought it home and just continued that. So it's just been one teaching process. Melissa, I am so proud of you. I think you're one of the young people. A lot of the times we say young people, they amount to nothing good. They're not motivated, they're not ambitious, but in you I think St. Lucia has found a gem. And we'll talk a little bit more about what you've done with the CAFRA League, CARIFEM, and where you've been at since the Valinda Joseph case. Moving on. But before we do that, let's turn our attention to our gentleman guest this evening, Mr. Kendall Elva. Tell us a little bit more about you and how it is that you came into activism. I mean, you're a community leader, and I think just last week, you had you were involved seriously with some Jeune Creole activity in your community of Belleville.
Yes, but before I address the activity that you have made the reference to, let me just say good evening to you and to all St. Lucians out there who are viewing this program. And let me express my gratitude for having us on this program, that is Caring Hands Foundation. As you have indicated, I'm Kendall Elva. I am from the beautiful, illustrious, and culturally enriched community of Belleville, Vieux Fort. I was born in Montcalm, however, I was raised in Belleville from the age of 5 years. I would have attended the Belleville Combined School naturally, given that this is where I'm from. And from there I would have proceeded to Vieux Fort Comprehensive Secondary School. I would have done my A-levels also at this very institution. I would have pursued sciences, which is what I did there. After that, educationally speaking, I went to Teachers College, where I learned how to teach secondary school students sciences. From there, I pursued a bachelor's degree in social work, and I was able to attain first-class honors at the end of my studies. Away from my academic pursuits, professionally speaking, I worked as a laboratory assistant at the Vieux Fort Comprehensive Secondary School. Then I went on to teach at the Belleville Combined School and returned to my alma mater, that is a secondary school, Vieux Fort Comprehensive Secondary School. And I taught there for 10 years. It was till the 1st of March this year that I got a transfer to the probation department. Moving to the community aspect of me as an individual, I am an individual who believes that individuals have immense potential for change and positivity, and I'm not one who believes that we are to stay back and allow for other people to attend to the matters that affect us. This whole notion of a diffusion of responsibility is something that we need to change as much as a society if we are to address the maladies that plague us. And from being a student at Vieux Fort Compre, in my last year at A-level, I assumed the presidency of the student council. I also had a stint in the Montcalm Evangelical Youth Group as a vice president. In 2004, I was selected to serve as St. Lucia's Curriculum Ambassador for a period of 3 years. And the mandate that dealt with spreading the gospel of CARICOM, and at the time, the CSME was the issue which was being discussed at the time. So we did a lot of work in terms of visiting schools, visiting community-based organizations, having town hall meetings, addressing matters relating to the CSME, the implication it has for St. Lucians and students, young people, all of us as a matter of fact. Another priority area was the whole issue of HIV and AIDS as it pertains to the clinical, the health, the social, cultural, economic aspect of that particular epidemic. We, as youth ambassadors, had quite a bit to do. And in response to that, I worked together with people like Joel Frederick, who was at the time president of the Inspirers, a group of young men from the community. And we did send in a proposal to the Digital Caring Connections Initiative. And we were the first winners back in 2004. And from that, we formed a youth group called Faith in Education, German Education Tie-Dye. And Tie-Dye did a lot of work in terms of using edutainment strategies, drama, theater, to educate young people in secondary schools, outside of secondary schools, community-wise, on the issue of HIV and AIDS. Presently, I am the president of the Belleville Development Committee, a group that I am immensely proud of. As a matter of fact, it was only Sunday past, which is the 11th, that we had a well-attended, a massive, a very entertaining Fête Creole at Belleville, and I would just like to thank every St. Lucian who attended this activity. But Belleville Development Committee, what it seeks to do and what it has been doing from since 2009 is to seek for opportunities whereby the residents of Belleville can be empowered to address the issues that they are confronted with. We believe that individuals have the ability, if they make use of their skills, their resources, their positive attitudes, if they come together, that a number of the issues that are affecting us it can be better solved. I believe in indigenous leadership. I'm not saying that there's not a need for outside intervention, but I think sometimes outside agencies have their own philosophies, they have their own modalities, and it may not necessarily reflect the needs of the people or the sensitivities that we as a people are experiencing. And as a development committee, we implement a number of activities in the area of youth and sports, elderly care, providing financial assistance to persons who find it difficult to pay their medical bills. Culture is also a big area for us. Ramo Polion is from the community of Bellevue, and we seek consistently to build upon this legacy. The old issue of education as an educator is always close to my heart. And you know, the area of mathematics is something that a number of our children struggle with. And we as a development committee, we try our utmost to respond to that. And what we do from time to time is to offer mathematics classes to the residents of Bellevue. And so far, I think the experience has been wonderful. I have a great team working with Stephen Louis, Celeste Charles, Balis Alexander, Tiffany Flood, Michelle London. So these are all persons who are part of the process. So it's not just solely me. But I think sometimes, even though you are the president, people see you as the face. But I would not be able to have achieved these things unless I had a strong group behind me. And I want to express my gratitude and hope that they do continue supporting me. Yeah.
Wow, that's a mouthful. And I mean, I would have never thought that you had such a wealth of experience, and I could totally see how, Melissa, that he would be well placed to help you in with Caring Hands. How did you get involved with Caring Hands and you be on Melissa's team? Because Melissa in her own right is very formidable, and you coming on very formidable. I can just imagine how formidable of a team that Caring Hands could potentially be. So tell us, how did you start off? How did you get in touch with Caring Hands?
Well, I got in touch with Caring Hands because I worked at Campus B with Melissa's sister, Miss Marsha Serville, and she indicated to me that there's a young lady who wants to speak to me on a particular issue. And she hinted that it had to do with children or issues relating to abuse or vulnerable children. And naturally, as somebody who has a social conscience, and I think I'm also somebody who is socially responsible, she got in touch with me. She discussed the idea, and I thought that this is something that I could make a contribution to. I knew her in terms of the contributions that she had been making in terms of gender issues, also being a strong advocate when it comes to matters relating to rape. And I figured that she's a strong leader, and I'm sure that if we come together with the other members of the team, that we could have an impact. And I believe that children are indeed a very vital asset to any country, and any effort that is geared at trying to ensure that they live in an environment, a society which is conducive to their holistic development is something that all of us should look to make a contribution towards. And this is how I got involved in the Caring Hands Foundation. And I hope and I believe it will be a marvelous experience, not just for me, but then for the children who would be the direct beneficiaries of the services that we would be looking to offer towards vulnerable children of St. Lucia.
Wonderful. So Melissa, earlier you alluded to the fact that Caring Hands Foundation started as a result of, or directly, the idea was born directly after the Valinda Joseph case. And I know you were so involved with getting Valinda some sort of justice and getting the community and her family and her friends some sort of closure. Now we know the case is still going on and we can't really discuss or speak to that. But tell us, what about the case made you decide that you wanted to be more involved in working with vulnerable and at-risk children?
As I said earlier, that I have a passion for the care for children, and I believe every child should have the opportunity to reach their full potential in life. And with the experience of Valinda Joseph and the cases before her and after her, sadly, it has been a very painful one, and especially when the system can fail a child. and I felt that there was some urgent need for something to be done about it, and hence the reason that Caring Hands came about, and hence the reason, I don't know, it's like it's a natural part of me to always want to get involved in this scope of work.
So
I think there's something I want to add to that. In terms of when someone is being raped, especially a child, that is a serious infringement of this person's human rights. And what is even more concerning is the impact that such behavior or such experience can have on the victim. And I think it is only devastating, the emotional effect it has upon them, because some people live with these experiences throughout their lifetime. They become emotionally scarred. Some people even become depressed. They develop a sense of a lack of self-esteem. The whole sense of worth depreciates just because of this experience. So it's like you have deprived that individual of a quote-unquote normal experience as a human being. And I think that as a society, we all have a responsibility in terms of trying to mitigate the exposure of children to these experiences, and a number of things that we could do. And I'm sure later on we will delve into various things that could be done to address these particular situations. But I think it is something that is totally unacceptable, and no child, no individual ought to go through a situation where they have been raped.
And I think more so than just being raped. And I mean, St. Lucia knows this is something that I'm very passionate about. Ever so often I will come up, I did a whole series on rape of women, and I don't think I dealt or delved in too much into the aspect of children and abuse, but certainly women. And one of the things I've learned throughout doing advocacy and even doing this show is that the care that adults can give to their children, a lot rides on the care that they got as children and what they learned, because it's a vicious cycle. Whatever I learn is what I'm going to pass on to my children. And if I learned good things, I'm going to pass on good things. And if I learned bad things or hurtful things, this is exactly what I'm going to pass on. And sometimes children abuse, not necessarily because, well, there are mean people out there who, well, it initially starts with mean people out there who are doing bad things to people. But then the immediate perpetrator or the person who turns a blind eye to that abuse sometimes just don't know how to cope. And they don't know where to turn to. They often feel that they're alone. How does Caring Hands proposes to deal with that? The parent, for instance, Milan Jabatis' mom, she has people around her now, but her child was still taken away from her when he was still alive and given to the care of his father and stepmother. And I can just imagine how she could feel that she's alone in this thing. How does Caring Hands proposes to bridge or to offer assistance to someone like that?
Let me, before I answer this particular question, extend sincere condolences to the family of young Jabatis who passed away as a result of abuse. I think that should never be the fate of any child who lives in St. Lucia. Children should be allowed to live out life to its full extent and reach their full potentials in life, become whatever they have been aspiring to, let the dreams become a reality. And I hope that the family gains strength from the Almighty, and we as St. Lucians should try our best to support them by extending remarks of encouragement to them during this turbulent period that they are going through. And I know it is difficult, but I hope that they really gain some strength and comfort throughout this experience. What Caring Hands Foundation is about is a matter of being there with the families or children who have been marginalized, who have been oppressed, children who are vulnerable. And the idea is that we will provide a helping hand to families of children who are facing devastating situations or going through difficult experiences. By this, what do I mean? As a foundation, we will be there to advocate for better programs and policies to protect these children. There are deficiencies in any system, and I don't think our social services, they necessarily cater or address every issue that surfaces. And there are a number of reasons for that. It could be a lack of resources, but I think as much as possible, whatever the deficiencies are, there has to be some level of advocacy, some sort of lobbying for these cracks to be narrowed in the social system that we exist within. So for us, we believe that there is need for a legislative agenda to address these deficiencies in our legal system. The other area that we're looking to work in is there are individuals out there, when they experience such tragic situations, they do not know where to turn to. And what we intend to do is to build a rapport with these individuals and seek to direct them to the relevant agencies that provide direct services for whatever experiences that they are going through. Because there are a multiplicity of government services. We have the Department of Human Services. We also have NGOs that are willing to assist children or families who are going through difficult situations. But people aren't aware that these organizations exist. And it's not just a matter of making a referral or putting them in touch with such agencies, but also lobbying to ensure that these relevant agencies actually do what they are intended to do. So there is need for follow-through, because sometimes the case is presented, there is intake, and for whatever reason, there isn't the appropriate response that is given to the particular family, and that we believe should not be the case. And sometimes these families aren't empowered to stand up and advocate on their own behalf and say, well, hey, this was an injustice which was done, I don't receive quality service, so what can I do? That is a reality in St. Lucia. So apart from doing the referrals, we as a foundation, there are things that we intend to do as we look to expand our services. But I think there's always a need for the provision of direct services. So for instance, a number of children, their materialistic needs in terms of nutrition, that is not met in an efficient manner or in an adequate manner. So there are opportunities where we will be providing people with welfare assistance in that nature, but not just monetary or in terms of providing food items. But I think we had to take a holistic approach to when a child is going through a difficult situation. There is always need for psychosocial assistance. Sometimes a child has been raped, or a child has been exploited, a child has been abused physically. This has a psychological impact on the development of that particular child. And so there is need for redressing, there is need for the strengthening of the child's resiliency, there is need for the imparting of life skills in the whole repertoire of that particular child as it relates to facing life and interacting with people. So the idea is that it's not just a matter of advocating where we talk or making referrals, but also there are areas where we are looking to provide direct intervention. And though I mentioned that we'll be doing the work with the particular child in question, but I think the child functions within an ecosystem, and one must always bear in mind that the various parts of that particular system has implications for the others, and it would only be prudent and holistic or comprehensive if we also target the family systems. Sometimes there are factors that are in the family setting which is not conducive to that child's development, and it may mean that we work with the parents in terms of refining their parenting skills. So there is need for family coaching on some occasions to help ensure that the environment, the immediate environment of that child is something that ensures that that child is exposed to a healthy, safe, and an environment that is conducive to him or her having a bright future as much as possible.
Okay, so you've told us so much.
Yes.
It's really a lot, and I
Indeed.
think it's something that is so needed right now. When we come back from the break, you will tell us where you're located, how we can get to you, how we can get involved, how we can reach out to you. We'll be right back after the break.